As bassist Ilya Osachuk soloing on one of his own tunes, Forward, and I'm excited to say that Ilya has joined me in the studio this morning. Hey, Ilya, good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for having me.
Great playing, man.
Thank you.
Sounded awesome. Tell us a little bit about what we just heard. Where and when was that?
Yeah, so that recording is of my tune Forward that I arranged for Jazz Octet. That was from Juilliard Convocation in my final year, my second year there. And it was actually the first time that anyone had ever performed an original jazz work on a Juilliard Convocation. So that was like a first in two respects, because it was the first time that anyone who had composed their own piece got to play it, was in the band. And then also it was the first time that a jazz composer who was in attendance at the school at the time was premiering a work there. How did
that feel?
It was pretty surreal. I mean, I remember it came together really quickly at the last minute. I just got an email from Dr. Flagg, who is sort of the person in charge of the jazz department, and he just said, we like your piece a lot, and do you want to play it? It seems appropriate for something like this. And I was like, yes, of course I would. Why would I not?
And there you are. What a way to cap off your time at Juilliard. You graduated last year. That performance at the Symphony Theater, the Peter J. Sharp Theater.
Yes.
You've been playing and gigging in the city since. I got to ask, what's it like living in New York and making music, living the dream?
Well, I mean, it is completely unparalleled in terms of variety of music, opportunity, and pretty much everything else that you can do. It's true. We were talking earlier that the city never sleeps, and that's definitely true. Sometimes we'll be playing the 12 a.m. to 4 a.m. set, and then waking up at 8:30 to go on the road the next day. But it's absolutely a dream of mine, and I had been wanting to do it for so long that, it still sort of feels surreal. It doesn't seem like I've been gone that long, but it truly is It truly is an amazing thing. It's a dream come true.
What's it been like working into that scene? I mean, you mentioned playing and gigging. It's one thing to be in New York. It's another thing to get in the door and play in some of these incredible spaces and halls and bars. What's it like kind of breaking into that scene as a young up-and-coming player?
Yeah, so a lot of what I did when I moved to New York was that I was just trying my best to go out and hear people play. It was a combination of hearing legends. Like, I remember the first day I moved there, I went to go hear Ron Carter that night. Mm-hmm. I had tickets booked to go hear Mr. Carter. But then after that, I would go to Smalls, or I would go to Mesro for the Polite Jam. I would go to these jam sessions, and I would be trying to meet other musicians who are new, or even people who are established, just trying to get myself heard and get to meet all these people so that, in a year or two, I could build into being able to actually really start my career.
And here you are bringing that jam back to Winnipeg. And before we get to that, I have to ask, how's it feel to return home?
It's like nothing else. It's really, really special, especially because I only get to do it a few times a year now. But it's amazing to be able to come back and play what it is that I've been working on over the last year or 2 years with the people in Winnipeg, especially in the jam session setting that we're going to get to. It's nice that I'm going to be able to perform with friends of mine and for friends of mine who know what I was sounding like 5 years ago, but might not have the opportunity to hear me regularly anymore.
So for those who haven't heard you perform in Winnipeg, you were born and raised here. You completed undergraduate studies at the Desautels Faculty of Music. You studied with, amongst others, Carl Kohut, another Winnipeg-born Juilliard-educated bassist.
Yes.
I know you were actively involved in the Winnipeg scene, playing with Aaron Propp and Larry Roy and Will Bonis and Ron Paley. The list goes on. You've also participated in the TD Winnipeg International Jazz Festival before, right? I'm remembering that correctly?
Yeah. I played at the Jazz Festival with my group for the first time 2 years ago. We played at the outdoor stage outside of the Human Rights Museum.
How does it feel to be back at the TD Winnipeg International Jazz Festival? What do you think makes this festival unique? I mean, apart from it being in your hometown.
I think a big part of it, especially when I was growing up and I was becoming very serious about jazz music, was the opportunity to hear stuff every night for that 10-day period or 2-week period, however the festival ends up getting laid out that year. That was something that I looked forward to every year, is being able to hear not only out-of-town acts, but in-town acts, and do it every night. Because, where I live now, that is actually something that exists every night. Like, there are jazz clubs that have 3 bands a night every night. So being able to get a taste of that somewhere like this that is, pretty far from New York, it's not exactly easy to get to New York, is a really special thing. So
We were talking earlier about that late night jazz and you kind of getting your foot in the door and playing in clubs and doing the, midnight to 4 a.m. shift playing. You're going to be doing a pretty late shift here. These late night jams begin at 11 at the Royal Albert. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of what you envision? Set the scene for those who maybe haven't been to a New York jam. What do you plan on bringing here to Winnipeg?
Sure, yeah. Well, first of all, yes, the session starts at 11 p.m. The house band will play from 11 to 11:30, and then we open it up for musicians off the floor. Something in general that I see a lot in New York is that when people sit in at sessions, sometimes they'll actually be able to put together groups that wanted to play but didn't have a space to be able to do that, especially given that in New York City, not everyone has the opportunity to live in a house. A lot of people live in apartments, and you can't play late in the night, which is why jam sessions exist there. It's literally just to fill this gap where musicians want to play with each other, but they have no other place to be able to do it. So my hope is that I can start to form bonds between other musicians that wouldn't have a place to play save for the jam session. In addition to that, a big thing that I would like to do is to feature existing groups on a tune. That's something that happens in New York, where an entire band will come and sit in and play one. Like I know the pianist Evan Miles, his group is playing Mundane Problems. They're playing before us, so I hope to have them up just to play one of their songs so that the new audience can hear that, or feature particular people from that group and maybe put them together with new people that they would not have played with otherwise. So the whole goal here is to just create a melting pot, to mix age ranges, skill levels, personal experiences, and create some stuff that would not have been created otherwise.
You mentioned Evan Miles, who will be at the piano. Can you tell us about the rest of the quintet that you've assembled for this hang?
Yes, absolutely. So the front line is Niall Cade playing tenor saxophone and Kyle Cobb playing guitar. Kyle and I go way back. We were all in school at the same time. And Niall I actually met just after he moved away from New York. He came back to Winnipeg, and I met him here. But he was a very good friend of some of my mentors, Curtis Noasad and Luke Selleck, while they were all living in New York City. So the two of them will be playing melody. Behind the drums, Tatiana Harashchuk, who has had an amazing career and continues to have an amazing career, continues to reinvent what the role of jazz music is and jazz drums are and jazz composition is. It's amazing. Her and I also actually probably go back the longest. We did undergrad together, but even before that, we used to go to Camp Veselka together from 10 years old. And I remember we were always saying, oh, we'll get together and we'll jam. And then eventually we did. And now it's 15 years later.
You totally did. And excited that you two have reunited. Like you say, you go way, way back. You performed regularly as original members of Budmo, the great party band fueled by cabbage rolls and coffee.
It's true.
One of the go-tos in the Ukrainian community, which is how we originally met. Can you talk more about that aspect of you as a musician? I mean, your Ukrainian heritage and the music that you played and sang growing up at places like Veselka, for instance, and how maybe it influences you as a jazz player today?
Absolutely. I mean, it completely influences my composition. I so often end up writing songs by ear, by just hearing them come into my head. And part of the reason I think I'm able to do that is because so much of the Ukrainian musical tradition is oral. Very little of it is written down. And when it is written down, it's not exactly what you would hear if you were going to go hear a family or a congregation or a group of people sing folk songs. So that is a really, really big part of my writing, is trying my best to blend jazz elements with something that is very universal, folk music, Ukrainian folk music specifically. But yeah, it really does have a big influence on my stuff. I didn't even realize for a long time how much of an impact it had until I had a conversation with Alexis Kokhan, who is also a very notable musician within the Ukrainian community. And she said, your stuff really does have that influence. You know that, right? And I said, no, I don't. I did not know that, but it does sound like that now that I was made aware of it by her.
And then do you kind of embrace it more moving forward? Because if it was a sort of subconscious act before, do you kind of then really tap into it and see where it takes you moving forward, do you think? Absolutely.
I mean, I've been trying to do that more and more with composition and with playing. That was something that I was initially a little bit afraid of, is trying to expand upon my own upbringing and heritage. But now I'm embracing it or trying to embrace it more and more because it's unique, because everyone has some version of that for themselves. And I not only take inspiration from it musically, I take inspiration from it conceptually. And the way that I approach music a lot of the time ends up being through the lens of wanting it to be applicable to a wide range of people who might not even understand what it is, but they know it when they hear it, if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Well, excited for you to share a few of your tunes as part of these jam sessions. I mean, like you say, the house band playing from 11 to 11:30. Then the floor opens up tonight, tomorrow, Saturday at the Royal Albert Arms. More details at jazzwinnipeg.com. Ilya, we're going to end this interview with an arrangement of yours. Can you tell us about what we're going to hear?
Yeah, so this is a big band arrangement that I did about a year and a half ago on a standard called It's Always You. It features Shabnam Abedi, who is going to be singing. And yeah, this arrangement was first actually aired on public radio in the U.S., but this will be the first time that it'll be aired in Canada, so I'm looking forward to playing it for you guys.
Well, we're excited to play it. Ilya, great seeing you, and enjoy your time back here in Winnipeg.
Thanks so much.